Right then, this is a walk around video for a possibly quite unique car. It is in amazing condition. This is a Lexus GS 300 SE, 2008 as you can see. Covered just 57,000 miles from new with a quite extraordinary service history and just one private owner. The car is exquisite inside and out. Hard to imagine one better, in all honesty. Front of the car, lights and lenses, as always, completely clear and intact. Front bumper looks absolutely superb as well. Bonnet of the car, literally can hardly see any stone chips anywhere in there at all. And then to come down the near side, it's just completely smooth in the panels, no indentations at all. Alloys, absolutely fantastic. Looks like they've obviously been recently done. Just like shake hands, it's quite cold this morning. It's going to be a bit glary with the sun in a second up here, but bumper corners on the back, again, all wonderfully clean. Now to the off side of the car, driver's side. Again, absolutely smooth in the panels, simply stunning. On the rear, again, absolutely superb. It's not to say, I mean, there's got to be some minor mark somewhere on the car, but there's nothing that jumps out at you at all. I mean, it's just one of the cleanest, freshest examples you'll see anywhere. That is a simply fantastic car. Let's go into the boot area now. They are huge boots, and as you'd expect of a Lexus, absolutely beautifully finished in there. Let's come into the back of the car now, come into the inside. It just continues the theme because the leatherwork is simply stunning. Coming to the front on the passenger side, door cards absolutely look like new. Footwell areas again, fantastic. And the passenger seat on the front there, in glorious condition. Coming into the front, again, driver's door card absolutely fantastic. And the driver's seat, the one that should show somewhere after 13 years or so, and the mileage it's done shows absolutely nothing at all actually. So inside now, engine is running through this section of the video. Dashboard, to all intents and purposes, looks like it's just been put into the car. It is in beautiful condition, a stunning piece of engineering and design. Sat nav, you can see they're working absolutely perfectly. Pop the car into reverse, the lovely clear gridded parking camera, all working exactly as it should. But it is in exquisite condition. If I come across to the dash binnacle, beautifully designed dash and detailing rather. Only warning light you can see, low fuel currently, but there are no warning lights on the dashboard at all. Finally, just to show you, owner's manual pack and lock and wheel nut keys here and present with the car. Right then, this is a quick road test video, and this is for a Lexus GS 300 SE, registered LL08UNY, and with a mileage of just 57,429 miles. The reason we do all of our videos is very simple indeed. It's to ensure that if anyone is online looking at our cars, they get to see the cars we're advertising in operation, and it is the very car advertised. The reason we feel it's important, as I say in all our videos, is simply because we've been to see cars ourselves which have looked perfectly good in descriptions and photographs, and then only to get there and find out when you drive it, it's got a fundamental issue which you would much rather know about before setting off, so hence that's why we do it. We also do it on these very quiet country roads in this lovely part of Gloucestershire. This actually forms part of the road test route we take our customers on, so hopefully then it'll be representative of what you'd feel yourself should you be offered a test drive in the car. So come to the car itself. I mean, it's been wonderfully looked after with next to no mileage on the clock, and these are very, very special cars. I will openly admit I'm massively biased, but for good reason, I believe, which is why I love them. I love buying them, love finding them when they're like this, because they're getting rarer, especially in this condition. But starting with the mechanicals, obviously push button start, engine starts instantly and settles to a completely smooth, even idle. There are no warning lights on the dashboard at all relating to the engine or any other part of the car. And temperature gauge is currently cold, because I try and do the videos where I can where the engine's cold, and then obviously when it's up to full operating temperature I'll read that out, because obviously issues can manifest themselves at different temperatures quite clearly. The engines are absolutely superb. I mean, it really is. It's a marvel of engineering. So smooth and quiet. Even by the very latest modern standards, this holds up against anything. But also the power delivery, the fact that it's got lots of initial thrust, but it just keeps going. You put your foot down, it just responds very quietly on throttle. If you put your foot down harder, obviously you get it to kick down and it's more urgent. But it is a simply brilliant powertrain. And again, the problem with these cars is, at the time, it was rightly, compared to things like the BMWs, Audis, and Mercedes of this world. But when you drive some of those cars now, they can feel quite old. And that's not to be disparaging. It's honestly the case. This just feels like a lot of Japanese cars, which are, as I said, so undervalued when they're new, because what they don't factor in when they do road tests, they do it purely on dynamics, is how the thing is going to last over the years. And this is where these are coming to their own. I mean, it is literally like sitting in and driving a brand new car. That's exactly how the car feels, and the powertrain's the heart of the car. And the engine is perfect. The gearbox, wonderful gear change, silky smooth, beautifully engineered, and again so civilized. You get far less of the sort of clunking and indecision that you get with some other manufacturers, and it drives the whole powertrain. I cannot fault in any single way. Steering of the car, again, just because it has kind of an oiliness to it, a nice weighting to the steering, completely in keeping with the character of the car, by the way. Sometimes you've got over-eager steering, and you've got what is essentially a very sort of, quite softly set up suspension. It can make for really unpleasant handling, or feel, at least anyway. The car kind of lurches. This just guides the chassis through the corners, and it's very accomplished. It's not to say it isn't, but the steering is really confidence inspiring. It also feels really solid and secure on the road. You're in something that's, from the moment you feel the steering, is beautifully engineered underneath the skin. It's just wonderful. It's also tracks absolutely dead straight. There's no vibrations or this speed or any speed up to the legal limit. Suspension on the car, again, it's just fantastic, because it's what it gives you is, in essence, most people that are buying these cars, they're not buying them to be a sports car. Quite the opposite. You just want a car that will take you from A to B, and that could be many hundreds, if not thousands of miles, as comfortably as possible, but one that will go through corners and not flounder around. And this is what it does beautifully. This section of road is notorious. It's like the surface of the moon, and yet you'd not know it driving this car. If you drove another car, a lesser car, across this road, you'd feel pretty much every bump. You can hear them, you can just about make them out, but it is superbly done. It really is. It gives you this wonderful kind of, makes the car feel really heavy, and just sits really beautifully over the bumps and crests. But as I say, when you go through the corners, it responds really well. And this is again where I come back to kind of the original Motoring Press, where they would laud the usual candidates, usually sort of BMW, which are fine handling cars. That's not to say they're not. They are superb, but they don't ride like this. Not in a million years. You know, they're great for those 5% of the trips you do where you're in the mood. For the other 95%, they're jarring and uncomfortable, in my experience, certainly the sportier versions. This, for most people's driving, is a much nicer place to sit and drive. I'm also listening out for any kind of nasty clatterings or knockings coming from under the suspension. Absolutely nothing at all, of course, I'm spot on. Brakes on the car, I'm just going to hold on to a few bits and give them a bit of a thump, make sure no one's directly behind me. Very powerful. What I'm looking for is really good initial bite, which clearly it has, but no kind of pulsing or vibrations coming back through the brake pedal, and there's nothing at all. And particularly important on what is quite a heavy automatic, because the brakes are doing a bit more of the work, because you don't get as much of the engine braking that you do in a well-driven manual car. So coming inside, I mean, it beggars belief. You know, photos will only do one thing, but when you sit in this car, you could be sitting in a car that was a few months old. That's the feel from all the plastics. There's no shine in here to shine it up. It's as it is. I mean, it is extraordinary to see it in this condition. Absolutely extraordinary. Which is why this is not going to be the cheapest Lexus out there. We're not even going to attempt to try and make it that, but we obviously had to pay the right money for the right car, and we're happy to do so. But it's also a lovely place to sit in a world now that's gone on to kind of iDrive, mouses here, tablets up here. It is so refreshing to get in a car where most of the stuff you can do really simply, really easily. Yes, you've got a touch screen for things like your climate control and your radio, but it's quick, it's easy to use. It's not kind of layers of menus to go through, the jiggly mouse where you're basically looking at the mouse and the screen more than you are the road, and that's hideous in my opinion. But also I would say everything working exactly as it should. You got the sat nav working perfectly there, the air conditioning, which is dual zone, gives you different temperatures side to side and blows out absolutely ice cold air. In a world of music downloaded onto devices, what a pleasure it is to see a CD, and look at that, a tape player. That's fantastic. And the Mark Levinson stereo system is astonishing, again, even by modern standards. It's helped by the fact it's so quiet in here that it's not having to fight background noise, harsh noises, rumblings, rattles, because there are none. It is build quality is on a different planet to virtually every other manufacturer out there. It is incredible to sit in this car. The dash in front, or the binnacle rather, beautifully done. It's like a high quality watch in terms of the way they present the detailing of the numbers and everything else. Just looks brilliant, and it's what a wonderfully simple binnacle it is. You've basically got a rev counter, a speedo, a fuel gauge and a temperature gauge, and a little information pod in the middle of it with some very basic information, and it's all the better for it, because all you want to do is look at your speed and occasionally your revs and your fuel and your temperature gauge, which by the way now is running just under half, which is exactly where it's meant to be. I've got a steering wheel here, leather bound, feels absolutely fantastic to hold. Quite small rim sort of width, which again I really like. There's a tendency for manufacturers now to put these sort of massive fat steering wheel rims you can hardly get your hands around, which so say sporty, but this is much nicer to hold in my personal opinion, and it almost seems bare. I mean, but it's lovely. It's just that you haven't got so much going on. You've got your radio controls, you've got your hands-free controls, and you've got controls for your cruise control. And that's it. Again, no distractions. You just drive the car, enjoy the car, probably have your radio on or chatting away. And I can't think of many modern cars where I can just get in and drive and just enjoy driving rather than being distracted by all sorts of things going on, by plugging in my phone, messages coming through that you can read on the... I mean, it's just crazy. But I have to say, this has been a joy to do this video. I've been looking forward to doing it anyway. I love these cars. I've owned a couple, and if I hadn't just bought a car, I would very happily put my hand in my pocket for one of these, and I have done it before in the past. I've done test drives and love them so much I've bought the car. But this is very special, very, very special indeed. And whoever is lucky enough, and I mean that, to get this car next will be taking on a simply sensational car.